Well, there really is a lot to discuss, as you yourself understand. Right now, former SBU officer Ivan Stupak is joining our broadcast. Ivan, welcome. Thank you so much for finding the time. As always, I'm very glad to see you.
Hello there. It is truly a wonderful pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so very much for extending this kind invitation to me.
We've basically been talking since the very first day of the full-scale invasion. And we talked a lot about whether the start of a third world war in the world was even possible, and so on. Now, there are explosions in many countries. Tell me, please, in your opinion, can this be called the beginning of World War III, or is it something else? I'm also very interested in your opinion about Russia.
I am more than certain that World War III began in 2022 with the attack of the Russian Federation on Ukraine, without exaggeration. Yes, some may disagree with me. People who are more specifically and thoroughly engaged in science who believe that World War III does not fit this definition. But listen, there are so many countries that are actively participating in this war. Russia attacked Ukraine, North Korea is directly helping it, Iran is helping it, and Western European countries and the USA are helping us defend ourselves. So to say that this is just a local, some kind of small border conflict, no one would dare to call it that. And as for what is happening now in the Middle East, once again, there are many experts who can tell you in more detail and thoroughly what the root cause was, who is to blame, where the Balfour Declaration fits in, what the consequences of World War II were, how the territory of Israel was divided, how Israel's borders were determined, and why all of this happened. That's a separate issue, a separate matter. But it can be said that all of this, what is happening now, is a consequence, there is such a phrase, of the world's permissiveness, the consequences of the world's permissiveness toward the aggression committed by the Russian Federation. So, not to be unfounded, I'll give you a very simple example. On February 24th, 2026, a vote takes place at the UN on a resolution condemning the Russian Federation, supporting Ukraine, Ukraine's territorial integrity, and so on. 107 countries around the world vote in favor of this resolution. Yes, these are just words, we understand that perfectly well, but sometimes words mean a great deal. 107 in favor, 12 against. Well, we know who the 12 are. That's the Russian Federation, Belarus, Sudan, and all sorts of other marginal countries. And 50 countries abstained. So they're neither here nor there. They basically decided to say, we're not involved in politics, we're apolitical. Among these countries were who? Saudi Arabia, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar. And there was a fifth country, I can't recall who, Kuwait. So literally 4 days go by, 96 hours. And the evil boomerang came back to these countries, the very countries that just 4 days earlier had been apolitical. Today they are at the epicenter of evil, only from the other side.
Yes, and you put it very clearly. 4 days have passed. Let's sum this up. Let's fix it, as people like to say nowadays. And those countries that we're not involved here, have now felt for themselves what is really happening because of the processes started by the Russian Federation. Ivan, a question for you. Today, the British Prime Minister Starmer made some loud statements. He says that Ukraine needs to join the fight against the Iranian regime. It is said that regarding assistance in the Persian Gulf from the Ukrainian armed forces, in order to shoot down Iranian drones. In general, how could this war, which is now taking place outside of Ukraine from a military standpoint, affect us, each one of us?
Well, you could say Ukraine closed the skies over the Middle East. Again, Ukraine will not take part directly in combat operations on the territory of the Middle East. We have our own war going on. We can't spread ourselves too thin. Ukraine is in a unique position to provide assistance by offering training programs for the soldiers and air defense personnel of Middle Eastern countries. Facing these threats, specifically teaching them exactly how to counter Iranian drones. Because we are the first country in the world, the first country in history to experience mass drone attacks from the Russian Federation, which unfortunately discovered and provided this technology. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the Iranians handed over, gifted, or sold them to the Russians, and we became the first to experience all the consequences ourselves of this weapon. Starting with several dozen drones per week, we have now reached an annual figure of 55,000 drones. Yes, there were periods when, let's say, we were having some fun and shooting down Iranian Shaheds, Russian Jarans, using very advanced Patriot systems. but we quickly realized that there were few missiles and many drones, so we needed to reduce costs. It was Ukraine that became the pioneer in making countermeasures more affordable for shooting down drones of the Russian Federation involves mobile fire teams, micro drones, and small missiles. VTOL is called vertical takeoff. Landing, well, actually, without landing, it already reaches a high speed of 250 to 300 kilometers per hour, catches up with the drone, and destroys it. And most importantly, these are the radars, sensors, detectors, and devices that allow us to identify drones as they approach and determine their direction. So, in theory, Ukraine will be the one to do this. The president said that we will teach our friends, not yet allies, but friends from the Middle East, how to counter such a threat. Yes, we are not counting on Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Qatar, or Bahrain to rush to help Ukraine after this war, simply to thank us for such support. Well, if they do help, that will be a plus, thank you. But if they don't help, if they once again take the position of being far from everyone and apolitical, then listen, we completely understand all of this. This is just big geopolitics.